guys, welcome back to the Capital Mindset Show. Today's going to be a quick update. It's basically about the Evergrande situation going on. And I hope everyone kind of looks at this and doesn't panic too much, but let's kind of talk about it and dive into some of the details of what's going on. So Evergrande is insolvent. It's going bankrupt. And the Chinese government is basically divvying up the assets of Evergrande. They're basically splitting the company apart, making the company sell most of their things except some specific key assets. And they're basically forcing the local jurisdictions to pretty much pick up the pieces where it's left off. Okay. So what that entails, it's kind of like a lesson as to the woes of centralization of authority. Okay. So what I mean by that is the Chinese economy operates under a centralized authority, basically centralized planning. And the economy is so complex that if I were given the reins, for example, I would say I'm too stupid to be given the reins. Please don't give me the reins. I think no one should really have the reins. Because it is such a vast system, such a vast array of individuals that it's nearly, if not impossible, and I do lean more on the impossible, to perfectly predict and how to fix situations or problems without causing more problems. It's like whack-a-mole. So or plugging a hole in a dam. You plug the hole in right over here, then another hole pops up over here. Maybe it's even bigger, and then you cause other problems, right? So China is kind of having to learn that the hard way, and they're kind of cracking down on certain industries. And it's a very complicated piece, and I think the West romanticizes Chinese politics. So they say, oh, they're these individuals with really long-term plans, and it's kind of when you really look at it, and you separate, by the way, from the propaganda that they invest in the West. It's not really, it doesn't really look like that. It kind of sometimes looks like they're chickens running around with their heads cut off. You see, like, for example, their policies with the pandemic, and it's kind of straight to the point, very hard line, and it's crushing their own economy. And there's really no reason to do that. But they're doing that, for example, for the Beijing Olympics. So they're doing that ahead of time so that they can have political clout, so they can show, China has no COVID, blah, blah, blah. And they're also, for example, cracking hard down on the real estate. And now China's GDP was heavily reliant on real estate. Now, they allowed that bubble to go on as long as it did. I don't know why. And the Chinese people do not invest in equities. They don't invest in business. They think that's too risky. So they're investing in real estate that's collapsed like about 50% in a lot of instances. And a lot of people, for example, are just giving up their homes, trying to sell it in fire sale prices in China. And I wouldn't even buy Chinese real estate. And I was actually really disappointed to find out that Oaktree, because I look up to Howard Marks, I was really disappointed to find out that Oaktree actually is investing in Chinese bonds. And the reason why is because that is incredibly risky. And I know why he did it. It's because the yield and quote unquote safety of like taking the assets, but the assets are kind of worthless. It was a bubble. So obvious it was a bubble. The West, the mainstream media in the West, okay, if they are talking about it, I can't tell you how obvious it is. Okay. So if they're talking about a problem, and it's a legit problem, because I know they talk about a lot of things that aren't problems, but if they're talking a problem that's a legit problem, that means everyone knows about it. It's not a secret. So I hope it wasn't him at the firm that made that decision, because I do really look up to Howard Marks, but I was disappointed to find out that Oaktree was doing that. And actually, hopefully it was Brookfield Asset Management that did that, because then I'd be a little bit more happy, because I would think that Howard Marks didn't do that, and it was just a decision made by Brookfield. But they were investing a lot in those bonds, and the bonds now might be interesting because they're traded at liquidation value. But when they were paying for that was terrible, and I don't understand why. I mean, I'm not saying that they would give me a call and ask for my opinion, but I would have said no, don't do that. But yeah, for the most part, what does that pertain to you? Why does this matter for you? Well, not so much. It just might cause a spillover effect depending on how leveraged our system was to theirs. And things can get worse and worse and worse. And there's no real way for the Chinese government to fully stop it, because they have to give out renminbi. And there's a whole topic that, I mean, you know what? I'll get into it. The Chinese renminbi is kind of worthless outside of China, and that's their currency. Of course, they have probably a lot of dollars, and they would have to give up the dollars to prop up devaluations and kind of make good with foreign creditors, because foreign creditors want their currency, not the renminbi, which is worthless. And there's a little bit of a little known fact by most people is that the general rule of thumb for Chinese settlements, or not Chinese settlements, currency settlements, is done by GDP, right? So that's a general trend. So United States, largest GDP and largest settlements by far, right? So most transactions settle in the US dollar. So the rule of thumb says that the size of your economy dictates the settlement size. Well, China should be number 2. No, it's not. And it's very little. It's like 2, 1, 2, or it's 1 to 5% of all settlements, global settlements, happen in renminbi, which indicates that the renminbi is essentially worthless in the eyes of most people. And they utilize Hong Kong. Hong Kong is the central hub as to how cash moves in and out of China, right? And that's, if you ask why Hong Kong is so rich and wealthy, there's your answer right there. Now you know. So Hong Kong is super wealthy because all the cash that flows in and out of China exchanges from renminbi to the Hong Kong dollar, to the US dollar, or to the euro, or to the pound, et cetera. But it doesn't go straight from renminbi to those currencies. And because it's the renminbi is worthless, and the Hong Kong dollar is pegged to the renminbi, so they have to be exchanged at that rate. So when you ask yourself, how do the American companies get their money out of renminbi into dollars? They go through Hong Kong, and Hong Kong, those bankers there, one of the richest places for banking in the entire world, they get the little fee. So I should go be a banker in Hong Kong. You know, I speak a little bit of Mandarin, but yeah. So if you guys want to go become really rich bankers, go to Hong Kong. Okay, for now, that might change. How, if this were to spill over, for example, that could have an effect on the capital markets here. We could see a rise in the dollar, right? So that would be kind of because of the liquidity crunch. If you see the collapse in the Chinese bond market, that could cause higher demand for dollars. And that higher demand for dollars could then, cause rates to come down, actually. And then we have the Fed trying to raise rates at a time where there's a high demand for dollars. So tightening when there's demand for dollars doesn't mix well, and so it might actually force the Fed to cut rates earlier than expected. So I'm saying that here, that if that happens right here on this channel, you know where it was said, it might force the Fed to cut rates earlier than they thought, just because this extraneous event happened, and it kind of caused a crunch in the capital market or the credit markets, and then has this overwide effect globally. So we're watching that, right? It's not happened exactly yet, but it's something that we're watching to make sure that it's not going to spill over to something big, right? Now, it's not going to be the same level of 2008. Anyone who says that is not, they're kidding themselves, because the size of China's economy isn't that big, and they're more of an export economy. They're not really the service or banking center of the world. They are not the world reserve currency. So something like 2008, what they're going through right now, isn't going to be that scale for the financial system. And a lot of our banks are very well capitalized and are not really leveraged to them. Of course, we have Oaktree, which that hurts me, because I hope it wasn't Howard Marks. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that. So you shouldn't really panic. Don't sell everything. Really, for most of you, you shouldn't even care. But it's, if you're interested in this dilemma and you wanted to hear the capital mindset take on it, I know there's plenty of other creators that are doing really good jobs on this, so I didn't want to make a crazy long video on this. I just wanted to give like my little tidbits here and there, and just in case you guys wanted to know. What I'm doing, basically, I'm just watching it, right? We're watching it, and we're not really doing anything as of now, because I think we're already set up for whatever it is that could happen. So we're good. On that note, guys, if you guys have any other questions or want more updates like this, feel free to comment down below, leave a like button, subscribe if you haven't, if you want more content like this. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.